I'm Chris Stutchko, co-host of the Ninth Grade Experience podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
The High Tech Podcast. We're here again. Another week, another episode.
We made it
Some
back.
more fun, some more hijinks. I feel like I started it on a very solemn note for some reason. I don't know why. There's nothing solemn.
I just felt like it was sudden. Like
It was sudden. Yeah.
We're here.
Well, I sat here long enough without really knowing what I wanted to say that I was just like, I'm going to start. Anyway, I'm Josh, one of the hosts of the High Tech Podcast, joined by Will, my other co-host. Other co-hosts, like I have another one. I don't know. I record on Thursday nights with another co-host for the High Tech Podcast.
Wow.
We're actually called the Low Tech Podcast. It's where we pretend to hate technology.
That sounds like a thing, and I'm here for it. So why did you out me?
Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, so we're back. Another episode. Glad to be back here. This is a monumental episode for the High Tech Podcast.
Monument.
Maybe that was a little overstep. I don't know. Who cares? It's our podcast. We can say whatever we want. It's the end of season 2. And again, as we've joked, some of you are like, wait, they do seasons? We're like, Yes, we do. We did one.
Yeah, exactly. We did one, so therefore that's a season.
Yeah, so that's a season, and we could have either kept going and not made it a thing, or stopped and made it a thing, and we determined to stop and make it a thing. So, this is the end of season 2. We are excited. We got some good stuff to talk about today, and really excited for what's coming in season 3, but we'll talk about that more later. Before we get started, just a reminder for the High Tech Podcast, we are on the interwebs, places. I don't know, I was gonna say something else funny and I didn't have it.
Good start.
Good start. Check us out on Twitter, at High Tech Podcast. You can follow us and get fun things we post. Mainly we just post about our episodes right now, but we're excited on note of season 3. We will be doing more posting, unique content that is not just our podcast episodes. So we're excited about that. So you want to make sure to check that out. Plus, you can see all the fun animal pictures that mainly my wife posts to our podcast Twitter.
She has been going crazy with those.
Yes. Which by the way, side note, I think so. My wife has been posting animal pictures lately to Twitter. She actually got a Twitter back just to post them to our podcast Twitter, so she'll hear this. But she thought she was super cool doing AI generated photos, as if she was gonna like trick us. And I was like,
no.
I was like, I know they're AI photos. She was like,
they're
you do?
Terrifying.
Yes, well, yeah, because a computer drew them based on her crazy prompts. I never intended for our prompts to generate AI photos.
This is terrifying.
It's terrifying. Anyway, so check us out there on Twitter. After I just motivated you by talking about terrifying pictures. Also, you can connect with us by email, hightechpodcast. Nope. Inbox at hightechpod. .us. There we go. It's like we've never done this before. Both of those things, you can send an animal photo to us, and I feel like I've had too much power for a while, and now my wife is abusing AI. So, Will, what animal picture would you like our great listeners to send us?
A raccoon with a wrench.
Raccoon with a wrench.
It just
AI's gonna have fun with that one. Raccoon with a wrench. So you can send that to our Twitter at High Tech Podcast or inbox at hightechpod.us. Yes, nailed it. Anyway, you can also find more resources and things and fun stuff from our podcast on our website, hightechpod.us. We post an episode page every week. Okay, there we go. Whew, that's the stuff. If you've been listening to us for a while, you probably just fast forwarded through what I said. So here we go. We're back now into the topic.
Hi, welcome.
Here's the spiel again. Anyway, so what are we talking about this week, Will? What do we got going on?
We are talking about the most relevant thing to online education that you've ever heard of.
Yeah.
Cell phones in the classroom.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it's irrelevant to online learning.
No, absolutely not.
We're just high-tech podcast. We're not necessarily online ed tech podcast.
Yeah, one, because that's a horrible name for a podcast, online tech ed podcast. And then yeah, it's you weren't trying to name our podcast. And two, yeah, we're not. I mean, I think we've made that pretty clear now. By the end of season 2, we definitely don't only talk about online stuff. I mean, we talk a lot about it because
Wait a second,
it's
what?
fun. But yeah, I mean, we also talk about it in classroom. But we're talking about phones in the classroom. You know, the age-old question, and by age-old, I mean since whenever cell phones started ending up in the classroom.
The last 10, 15 years age old.
15 years. Yeah,
Well, and it's kind of the difference between, hey, here we go, first topic. The difference between the cell phones that you and I grew up with, the first, you know, democratically available cell phones that like could play Snake and dial 911. Like that was all those things could do. And
I mean, they could dial other numbers.
Well, barely.
And T9 text. Don't forget about your beloved T9 texting.
Still would go back to T9 texting today if there were keyboards that
quick abridged side note, listeners. Will, when we were in college, was still T9 texting on his smartphone.
Bro, I was using T9 texting for until 2 years ago.
Till they discontinued the keyboard, assuming that all people who were still using it had died. Like that was what they're probably like, they're dead now. We don't have to support this keyboard anymore. They're like
had died. Yes. I was the only one living, and I went down kicking and screaming. I still believe that it is a more efficient system of typing.
Oh man. Okay. Well, that's a different topic for season 3. Is T9 more efficient? We should have like a T9 race. If we could still get a keyboard.
I've done that.
Really?
I've done races with people like, you can't be kidding. You can't be serious that you use that. I'm like, watch me. I bet you I'm faster than you. Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm gonna find some kind of AI generated keyboard on my computer that can type faster.
Yeah, it's just called an AI keyboard.
Be like, quick Siri, type faster than Will.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's done.
Anyway.
But like, so cell phone issues when they were just actual telephones, were different. Like a kid took a call in the room that was, you would stop them, or it was like a whole big thing, or texting under the desk. Okay, sure, an issue. But like now it's just like our kids got the AirPods in. Are they listening to podcasts? Are they, texting each other in the room? Are they sending picture Snapchats? Are they recording you as you do something stupid and become a viral post that gets you fired? Like, that's not necessarily a bad thing if you did something stupid, but it's a big issue, right? Like cell phones are all in almost every kid's hands. And I don't know, but I'm assuming it's getting younger and younger each year. I think
it probably varies, but yeah, I mean, now granted, compared to us, it's younger because, like, let's be honest, when I was their age, it didn't exist. There was nothing. Right. There was no. It was like my grandma was like, "Here, I bought you this car phone. Here, have fun with have fun with this at the age of 7."
Right. Like car phone.
So like, yeah, it's different, but like, you're right. Like having cell phones in the classroom now is a different conversation than it was when we were in the classroom. So that's one thing I think to recognize. Now, I think like, let's just get past that and say, hey, we're talking about smartphones. Okay. Like that's basically what everybody has. iPhones.
Did we
Android.
mislabel this episode? Should it have been smartphones in the classroom? Is that how old we are? We mislabeled this episode.
I thought it was obvious that when we say cell phone, that's what that means, but apparently
I just don't know.
I don't know. Like, you're the one who was T9 texting, so I don't know if you're exactly our target audience. Oh, so should they be in the classroom? So let's put aside for just right now, being able to record us doing something stupid, or let's cyberbullying. Let's take that off the table just for right now.
Sure.
Let's just talk purely from what I think becomes the bigger part of the conversation is like they're a distraction.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's if we're honest, there's all that other side stuff that we're dealing with, but bullying existed before cell phones existed. That's my hot take. While it's a tool, makes it easier. So did, sticks that people hit each other with.
The human issue of bullying, has not been made worse or exacerbated by it. Right.
Yeah. And as long as you're not doing anything dumb that would get you fired, taking videos of you probably shouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Right.
So let's deal with just the distraction component. I'm curious.
Right.
You and I, we put this episode on here, but we haven't actually really talked about this before the podcast. It doesn't, understandably, in our job circumstances, it's not coming up very often because we're both involved in like online learning.
No, the irony though is like, I think we're immediately thinking probably kids in K-12, maybe, okay, I'm thinking kids K-12. I really am. That's where I'm thinking of this in the first issue. We both know what happens in college, but I have had tons of experience with this being an issue with faculty in sessions. Like, this is not just a kids issue.
Yes. So let's broaden it then. Should phones be in any kind, like in a learning
should we have phones?
Yeah, but like in a training, because like you're right? Like, you know, I'm losing faculty when almost all of them are looking at their phones, and the training I'm doing has nothing to do with mobile phones.
Right.
Like,
yep.
But yeah, like in so like this conversation's probably the reason we haven't talked about it much is because like what you were just mentioning is this conversation is definitely a bigger hot topic in K-12 than it is in higher ed.
Well, and that's because a lot of faculty still have the control to say no phones. They'll like grade kids bad or whatever. Like there's I suspect there's some of that in K-12 too, but I've heard from my K-12 colleagues who are like really upset about it again, or you know, there's kind of a big movement to get classrooms to use phones or devices effectively for some time, and then it's like, but is this really working? And definitely coming back from the pandemic, where kids were learning from home and had so much less oversight for so long, they were all on their phones or iPads or whatever the whole time they were at home for the pandemic. So now it's like, now we're back in the classroom. It's reteaching and re-behavioralizing students to not do that. Like that's a big change.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think it's coming back up again because of some of that. And like, I know, like we were just talking about a couple podcasts ago after an episode was over about a friend that we know that like was adamantly against it. And then, well, not adamantly against it, was adamantly kind of like, no, like cell phones are fine. They're in there. And then they start teaching again. And they're like, I take it back. Cell phones should die. And
not great.
Never come back. So I will say this. I think down to the point of like, are they a distraction? They absolutely can be if we're not using them carefully, both in K-12 and higher ed. Like if we're taking the higher ed side, let's focus on higher ed for a second. They absolutely can be a distraction in higher ed, right? Like I've taught classes before and seeing students, like I love the students who think they're being super tricky. These are my favorite.
That's
where like
maybe the arm,
where they're like, they're like the arm thing and they're looking down, or they got it behind a book, or the ones who like sit it on their laptop screen. And they're like doing it like because our laptops are more acceptable. I'm like, no, I've done all those tricks. I know what you're doing
with folks who have freaking MacBooks and stuff. Like the big problem there is they can be using iMessage and things from their laptop, so that we wouldn't even know.
Well, and even people with Android and Windows now combined, you can do texting. It's only those crazy people like myself who have an Apple phone but use Windows computers that can't
that are screwed.
The world is texting from your computer. So so like they're absolutely a distraction. I will say this in the higher ed area, right? I think I'm not a huge fan of like banning the cell phones from the classroom. I think having like, because we're dealing with college age students at that point, so like I feel like having some kind of like etiquette thing and like policy for how you expect students to act in class and pay attention in class. That can include stuff about phones, like the way you're using phones and things like that. Like that's kind of my perspective. Maybe I'm a little too loose, like, cause I like some of my stuff I would have is like a perspective of like, hey, at the end of the day, if you get a text message from like your mom that there's some kind of emergency going on and you don't want to literally leave class, like you can just text her real quick without leaving. I'm like that type of stuff, like having that type of stuff of when it's acceptable to text. Like,
and you can get that text and then decide and choose to step out of the room, as opposed to like the call comes through and is disruptive to the entire group. I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's any perfect world where the phone isn't at some level a distraction in the classroom. But I also agree that we are past a point as a culture in society where you can take people's phones from them or keep them from them exclusively. You know, so I
at least
agree,
in a college environment, I really don't like profs who grade their students on that type of stuff, because it's so subjective. Like,
Yep.
so like I know a prof who would do that type of stuff. Like, they saw a student on their phone, they take points off. But again, you don't know why that student's on their phone. Like, you've absolutely no idea. Like,
Yep.
it could be like a genuinely good reason. I mean,
If
they're
it's
college
Josh,
students.
he's on his Notion database taking notes.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
it's totally
taking notes.
fine.
You know, so like I'm okay with that stuff. And I'm okay with profs doing like contracts and things. Like, we had a prof in undergrad that made students sign like a technology usage thing in classrooms and things like
Sure.
that.
This is my
I'm okay.
policy, a sign that you're gonna follow it.
That you're gonna follow it. I'm totally fine with that type of stuff. So the thing I think that can help mitigate some of that is like, just don't create a classroom where students are literally sitting and listening to you for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Because with all due respect, that's also when I lose people during trainings. Like, you need to engage and have good learning experiences. I think if
Right.
you're having that with like kind of multimodal learning happening throughout the classroom, and you're varying things, that can help combat some of the distractiveness that technology might overtake in that area.
Yeah.
And then I'm also, I'll be honest, it's probably not the best thing in the world, but I'm also sometimes a fan of if the student is clearly misusing the technology, given that look, you know what I mean? The
look.
like, the acknowledgement of like, I know what you're doing. Stop playing
I see
Wordle while
you.
I'm talking.
You see me. Let's agree that you stop doing that.
Let's agree that we stop doing that. I don't know. Like, are you in the same boat? Are you like anti? We haven't really talked about that. Are you like anti?
Well, and
I feel like as a friend, you could drop either way in the needle. I have no idea.
It's true, and it's been a while since I've been in like the traditional classroom. When I'm working with adults in like corporate training and stuff, I definitely think that it's not even just the cell phone. This episode could be renamed a third time to just distractions in the classroom, for Pete's sake. Like, I will be dealing with a Zoom room of 30 adults, and 2 of them are on camera and looking at the screen. And 28 of them are doing who knows what. But that's motivation, that's distraction. There's a lot of issues at hand there, and value. When it comes to like, martial arts training and some of the other things that I am doing and still in teaching, there are still spaces for tech. Actually, you'd be surprised. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we do when we're doing like higher level training and martial arts training where folks want to be able to take notes. And a lot of folks have gotten away from keeping handwritten notes. So you'll see an iPad in a seminar. Like, that might be surprising to folks, but I've seen iPads in Taekwondo seminars, because folks are over there writing notes or typing notes, taking pictures as we're doing things. So that's real. And I think that gives me the best evidence for what I want to see people do, right? You don't see somebody in a martial arts seminar grabbing their phone to watch a TikTok or text their girlfriend, right? Like, you see them grab their phone because they want to engage with the environment or the learning content in a deeper or more richer way. So that gives me that like goal. Like, isn't that what we want to accomplish then? If the cell phones in any level are in the classroom, don't we want them to be used to do that kind of thing? And like Josh said already to you, like, we need to find something that motivates the folks to do that in the first place. If you're just droning on and they're not motivated to engage or use their tech effectively or efficiently, well, then the problem's not with the cell phone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's ways to, like we've talked about with engagement of like mixing things up, talking, how you bring in group work, how you bring in collaborative stuff, how you bring in activities and things, and different types of stuff that you can bring in that makes it. I think our tendency in society is to say this thing is either good or bad. And this very much happens in technology, right? Like, you and I know this, like the amount of people who are like, kids shouldn't have any technology at all. It's making them worse. I was like, I'm pretty sure we murdered people before cell phones existed, but that's fine.
What?
So that's okay. I'm sure things are getting worse, other than, okay, guess the Crusades never happened. So anyway, I'm getting on my soapbox of it. But anyway, they're both good and bad. And so at the end of the day, it's a tool. And so I think we need to figure out how to leverage that. If you have students being distracted a lot, constantly using their phones, not paying attention. I think it should both be a question of, have you set standards for the students and are you holding them to them? And also then, like, is there anything about the dynamic of what you're doing in the classroom that's allowing them to do
Yeah.
this, that's encouraging them to be disengaged from what they're doing? And again, I'm not saying it's not always the teacher's fault. There are definitely those students who, like, okay, no matter what I
Absolutely.
do, that student keeps bringing up their phone and they can't seem to control themselves with it. And we need to figure out some different scenarios for it. But I think I've noticed the professors and teachers who set clear standards and hold to those, and also build a classroom where they're not constantly on it. That's just my experience. I'm sure, like,
Yeah.
there are people who've experienced other things that may have different perspectives on that. I haven't done enough thinking on this whole topic as a whole to really give, like, here's my well-researched 5-year opinion on this idea.
Right. Well, and I actually like where you're leading. I like those first 2 points, right? Like, it's kind of the question of, what am I doing? What are they doing? The third question is, like, what's happening with them? Like, we've both said we have some empathy for the fact of, like, if there's a family emergency or there's a real life thing going on that's pulling them into their phone and out of my classroom, the opportunity, if after, am I using effective teaching techniques and are they engaged in the learning process, is why aren't they? There's always an opportunity. I think a lot of folks kind of it's a tough line, because I think a teacher should be there for the teaching content, but we are humans, and teachers should be aware that the other human on the other side of the teaching spectrum may not be as ready to learn or as engaged in learning or whatever. And it's worth asking them, like, hey, I see that you're on your phone a majority of my class periods. Why? What is engaging you there? Is this something that we can talk about? I was literally just talking with somebody today on LinkedIn, small random world, right? Who was saying that she was uninstalling TikTok. She had been doing it for a professional purpose. She loves making TikToks. It was doing good work for, she's marketing or something like that.
Yeah.
But she's like, I got sucked in, and it's taking more from me than I want to give it. And she's down uninstalling it and moving on from it. I'm like, that's really interesting. Nothing against TikTok, but, like, the fact that it was on the phone and you end up doom scrolling it becomes an addictive behavior. It is a behavior. People can change behaviors, right? So one of the things that I might ask a student who would be willing to sit with me and talk to me about these things is, like, are you getting stuck in social media when you're in my class? Maybe you can just log out. Just log out of the app before you come into my class. That alone is going to make it, you're going to break the cycle and make it harder to access the social media, and make it one more barrier to getting distracted before they get. That's assuming they want to be in your class in the first place, that they have any interest in your class in the first place.
Obviously,
I'd talk through those things.
Yeah.
But if you can talk with this person, they'd be like, hey, well, I'm in the class. It's maybe not my top interest class, but, like, there's nothing wrong with you. I don't find it whatever distracting. I just, like, I don't know, I pull up my phone and then I'm suddenly 30 videos deep in TikTok. Okay. Can you log out of TikTok? I'm never going to ask somebody to uninstall it or make them go somewhere drastic, but it's like, the suggestion should be available. Yeah. Maybe there's something you can do to change the behavior. And if you can have that conversation with the student, I think it's going to have a lot more lasting effect than just penalizing them for having it out, or just shaming them in the classroom, or just, some of them more base or typical responses we'd expect from people. I think it's life-changing if you can have a talk with somebody and help them realize that they are being, for lack of better term, controlled by those behaviors. And if they can take that control back, it can really elevate them. They give them something at a personal level that they don't currently have, because what's happening is they don't have self-control, and they're not able to exercise executive function over themselves and keep themselves on task. So they have to change their behavior and practice good executive functioning, or they have to fail. Like, I mean, at the other side of this is, like, some people just aren't, and that's okay too. But I don't know.
I like
rabbit trailed by the whole crap.
Yeah, no, I like the point about finding out why, right? Like, because, like, I even look at myself, like, okay, why do I get on my phone for a long period of time? Like, let's just be very honest. If you see Josh Schwartz on his phone a lot while you're with him, he's either probably bored by what's going on at that exact moment, or like, or I'm avoiding some awkward. I don't like small talk and social situations, so I'll avoid it through the phone. It's an avoidance technique. So like,
literally walking down the street, I'll just look at my phone and there's nothing on it. I'll just look at it.
Marvel has posted a new video, or I'm trying to find GIF content for conversation so I can get past the. Anyway, like, so finding out those reasonings. I will say this: the thought came up while you were talking about this. Is the other point I think I would throw out is, if you're, I think as instructors and teachers, what we could do better is finding a happy medium in this too, like not just allowing it to be there all the time and not just shutting it down, like lock it up in a box type of situation, but finding intentional times to say, you know, we're going to put the technology away in class, and this is why I'm asking you to do it, and we're going to focus on this, like giving them an alternative task of some sort. Whether you can even do this while you're talking, like if you need to talk for like, you know, you need to walk through just like a lecture type content for a little bit, being able to sit down and say, you know, we're going to put away our technology. I don't want you guys to take notes. I just want you to focus in on, I want to talk about a couple of these things and here are the questions we're going to talk about. And afterwards, we're going to come back together and talk about those questions, whatever they may be.
Right.
And this content's going to help you in that. Right. So like, that's like having that kind of, that like practice through classroom of when we're using tech and not using tech, and asking students to physically actually put it away during that moment, is also showing students that it's not like, I hate your technology. Like, I'll be honest. There were professors in college that were like, no laptops. You have to take your notes on paper. We see this far less now today, but there's still a couple of them. They're like, take your notes on paper only, or listen.
Yeah.
And that's the entire classroom. And those profs lost a lot of respect, at least in my mind, because I was like, yeah, but see, here's the thing. I have horrible handwriting and also slight carpal tunnel from being a drummer for years. So I'm actually being more focused on how much in pain I am and how much I can't read those notes afterwards. And also,
I can't search my notes.
I can't search them. Okay.
Yep.
Like I would rather have it in a tech-based system, not because I think it's easier because I want my computer so I can scroll through Facebook, but so I can find these stinking things afterwards when I want to remember them. So like, it's those components that I think it's remembering those, what good uses of technology there are in a classroom, whether it's the laptop or phone, and then finding ways, I think, then to kind of set up a pattern in the classroom of, okay, it's fine to use tech now, we're going to use it now, or even intentionally be like, hey, I got this, you know, I'm bringing up poll everywhere, we're going to take some polls, pull out your phones, it's totally okay, we're going to use them this time. Like finding ways to also leverage the power of what that cell phone is in your classroom, because the power of it is that your students each basically have more power than the first shuttle to Mars, or not Mars, the moon.
The moon.
Yeah, there we go. Things got weird there for a second. I was into future dream.
You're doing some revisionist history. That's all.
It's history. They have a freaking computer in their pocket. Like, there's a lot of power in that in the classroom. Where if you want them to look up information in groups and teach them how to look up content for a certain topic or whatever it may be, or do stuff like poll everywhere, or the game that we don't talk about that rhymes with Bahoot. And then like those are options, and leverage those well. Use that technology for what it can be and the power that it has.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that we've got enough to dig into like the higher ed approach. The K-12 approach is a bit different because those kids don't have the right executive functioning is a technical term and a concept here, but like they don't have the practice being controlled and disciplined and on task, right? They are in many cases up until the, you know, hopefully the later teens kinds of students, but like for maybe 10 of the grades, 9 of the grades, right? 1st to 9th grade, they just don't have the self-control needed to have a cell phone in the room and not use it for less than educational purposes. I think there are exceptions. I think they can be taught how to do it, but I think the bigger issue with that is I think that faculty, teachers don't have the time or don't want to take the time to actually teach them the effective way to use the phone. I mean, that is going to be a practice. It's not going to be like, hey, here's my policy on the phone use, da da da. It's going to be like actually modeling with them, actually getting on their phones with them. But now it's tricky because I don't really want to be on a kid's phone. I don't want to like look over their shoulder while they're using their personal device because we're going to use it for something for learning,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't want to bridge that space with children. So yeah, it's a tough one. I think the K-12 folks have it a lot harder than the higher ed
Yeah.
folks.
Now I will say, and maybe this is my less understanding part of it, so we'll see how this goes. But I did work in youth programming for several years and had to deal with phones. And I will say this: I don't think it's that. If you set up a pattern in the classroom that you're in where we're using tech now and we're not using tech now, and I expect to see it in your bags and not out during this period of time. If you it's not that hard to set those standards. And I do think it's important, no matter what field we're in, to help. At the end of the day, my opinion is technology is here. And no matter what field you're in, whether you're teaching history, you're in STEM, you're whatever you're doing, you're teaching, language, you're like, when they get out of your classroom, some way of your field will be impacted by the way they use technology in certain ways. And so I think it's important to try to build that. Liturgy is the only thing that keeps coming to my mind as a church person. But like a pattern of doing that. I don't know. Maybe it's my sensitivity to the discussion, and I accept pushback, but I'm hard convinced to be convinced from the perspective of literally no technology in this classroom.
Yeah.
From start to end of the entire class. And I'm not talking about like one class. I'm talking like the entire semester, or the entire
right.
like the I don't know. I feel like that's I'm not a fan of the shutdown perspective when it comes to technology, because it's not just like a fad that your kids like to play with. It's a reality that all of us have to deal with on a daily basis. And so we have to start
we have to do it
taking
right.
ownership of that, doing it right, both in teaching and in other environments.
Yeah, and I have some friends who sometimes will advocate for it. And hey, well, before I say this, nothing against folks who ever want to take a digital cleanse, a digital Sabbath,
Oh
a digital whatever you want. Like,
yeah. No,
there's
I'm
always
not
good things,
that.
but I've had some friends who are like, hey, why don't we do this activity phoneless? I'm like, okay, sure. It still takes me a conscious effort to do that, right? Or I got to put my phone somewhere. You got to step away from it physically. Even me, a 30-something-year-old man who takes this very seriously and who cares. And I don't use social media on my phone, so it's like, it's not even like I'm sitting there like doom scrolling Facebook and Twitter for whatever. I might want to pick it up and look at a GIF to show folks, like you said. I might want to Google something that someone said, or pull up a wiki page, right? And yet having an intentional time without tech is still it takes a concerted effort for me.
Yeah.
And I care. And I've already established, if anybody's listened to this podcast for more than one episode, you know that I'm not a big tech user. I'm not a fan of these things at times, but I think that the opportunity there to have some empathy and say, wow, I can't even just put this down cold turkey without some effort, should give some pause for the fact that literally kids and college age students would have difficulty with it as well.
Oh yeah.
It's okay that they do,
And I'm not against
now part of life.
Yeah, I'm not against like that type of stuff. I'm not against like setting limits for kids and how they use technology and things like that. I think that's all necessary. Like, technology is literally designed to make some of the apps are literally designed to make people use them all the time. So they're using addiction type, whether they want to call it that or not, like patterns to get people. So I absolutely think that. I just and in unique cases, right? There are reasons things people struggle with in the technology world that they might say, I'm not ever doing this, or I'm not ever getting on social media. I'm not against those things. I think I see a lot of writings where it's like, well, we designed our entire education program for kids around literally they never use technology. And like from start to finish. And I'm not like I'm a fan of in moments of classrooms or certain subjects or whatever it may be, taking tech out of the picture for those areas. But I think like literally writing down technology is the evil and ruins kids, so we're going to pull it out of education. That I think is ridiculous. I think it's a tool, and just like any other tool, it can be used poorly. There are negatives, there are positives to it. This comes behind a whole, if we really want to do a whole podcast, which we should maybe at some point, of my philosophy on technology and what technology is. Like we should talk about that because there's a whole philosophy around how technology in of itself, every technology that comes out, like when we talk about technology, we often think of technology as in like cell phones, internet, things like that. But really the term technology is any new advancement tool that's come out. When trains were a thing, that's a new technology. There's a researcher that does some stuff, and this will be a preamble. We're definitely doing this in season 3 now because I think I got
I wrote it down.
There's a researcher who talks about literally how when what was it? When not the TV. It was something about the fireplace. When they got rid of, that's what it was. When they got like heating in the house and got rid of the fireplace, it was a technology element that actually got rid of the practice of cutting wood and sitting around the fire with your family and things like that. And people back then literally were talking about how this will ruin families. Like that was the thing. And he talks about how with every technology something is gained and something is lost. And so we have to figure out how we leverage what's gained and how we make up for what's lost. And that's the reality. And so that's why a lot of my perspective comes from just cutting technology out and labeling it the evil. That's not right. It's a tool that can be used, and I think that's ridiculous.
And you've actually quite efficiently, quite effectively set me up for a metaphor from a recent experience of mine. So we're speaking about we're speaking about what we do with tools. I was at a friend's bonfire evening, and they have a landscaping group, and there's a ton of wood. There's always wood at this place, right? So the bonfires just go all night.
Yeah.
But they don't always have it split. So there's always a log, and there's always an axe, and there's always somebody splitting some wood to get it on the fire. And while we were there, several of us, I'm a newbie to this group, but I'm a newbie to the area in this group, but I know everybody in the group. Okay. So I just went to split something. Oh, Will's got it. No problem. But there was somebody there that no one knew, like had just been invited by one of the friends, was very new. Like, hey man, like, let me show you real quick. Like, this is how to split a log. Right. And so one of the guys who's a landscaper, he's like, look at me. You might think that this is reckless. He swings it and he hits it and splits it and it hits the ground. He's like, this might look crazy to you, but you need to swing your axe every time like you're going to slam it through to the ground. Like you've got to like hit it as hard as possible. And the guy was like, well, it looks like you might, like if you miss, you're going to hit your feet. He's like, no. If you swing it the right way, it's going to go right down and only down. It's like, if that guy didn't have that instruction, the tool in his hands would have been dangerous. He might have hit his feet or just missed the target or whatever, right? Like, but having someone who could stand there and be like, this is how to use this tool. Swing it this way and swing it hard, and you'll protect yourself and get the job done, right? That parameter is what we want to apply to cell phones. And unfortunately, it's dangerous to like cut yourself with an axe, of course, but like the danger there is overall pretty minimum, and it is just to use cell phones today. As we said, we weren't going to bring it as a big topic, but cell phones are a big thing at bullying and just other cyber safety issues that it's not as simple as just save your toes. Some of the issues that these students are dealing with on these phones can be about their entire lives, from just their reputation to their personal safety. So it's something I take very seriously, much like teaching that person how to swing an axe to split some wood. We have to teach these students how to use these phones because unfortunately, a lot of their parents just hand it to them and say, I want to be able to call you at any time. Dude, when I had a cell phone, my first cell phone, my parents couldn't even commit to that because I might not have had minutes, right? Like I was texting, I was using the minutes up. It's like, they're like, you make sure you always have 3 minutes or 5 minutes to be able to call 911 or call me, right?
I remember managing the minutes just to be able to text. Yeah, like that was a whole different world.
When even texting could use your minutes, and it was like it was a crazy system. So the issues we grew up with our cell phones is so much different than the issues the kids are using these days with their smartphones, and we need to be aware of that, aware of the dangers, aware of just even the constraints. Like this is a whole. If I was observing just any random technology, I would want to know what are its affordances, what does it offer me, and what are its constraints, what are its limitations, what could go wrong with it. We need to know that. And I think that's the first thing to address if you're going to think about cell phones in your classroom. Josh and I think, are both behind doing it. I'm definitely for it. I've made policies for that for my classroom. I've, like I said, seen it in my martial arts use, right? These are adults who are using it effectively. And I know the difficulties I have using it and staying away from it. So you just have to work the balance there. This isn't a yes-no decision for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So if that left you unhappy that we did not give a hard yes or no, welcome to the High Tech Podcast. And I'm sure we'll bring this up again. And we're going to talk about philosophy of technology at some point during season 3, because I have a lot of opinions on that. I've been doing a lot of thinking on that over the last couple of years. So I'd love to talk about that. On that note of tools and new technology having positives and negatives and abilities of what it does, I don't have a really great transition for this one. I'm sorry. I should have thought about it, but so we are continuing an app conversation for this episode from a couple episodes ago. When did we see? I should see.
You almost sniped this one, but
there it is. There it is. There's the transition. Will you ever know if that was on purpose or not that we did it that way? No, you will not. So
Josh still hasn't found the episode.
No, I found it. So it was 3 episodes ago. We talked about tutoring and Readwise. So Readwise was a tool that I have been using and have loved. It connects into my note management app and basically life management app, as we will see. Notion, but connects into other stuff like Evernote and things like that. The same friend of mine who told me about that has also been using this app called Snipd. So now before we get much farther, I'm going to spell it out for us. It'll be on the episode page as well as here on the podcast page, but it is SNIPD. I'm spelling it that way for you because if you're like us, it took Will and I a good solid 10 minutes to figure out how to actually pronounce it.
Or to take our best guess.
Yes, we were like, is it Snipd? Is it, what is the...
What are they trying to do here?
Yes. So anyway, they are an app both for Android and Apple, but it's basically a podcast listening app, which is great. But they do something pretty cool. So they have a bunch of other features for podcasts and stuff that I won't get into here, although we should totally check it out. They mainly what their tool is they're a podcast tool that uses AI to help you out. And the way it does that is for those doing podcasting, it can help, do transcripts automatically. It can create, the AI can create chapters and episodes. But the big tool they do is that Snipd allows you to, while listening to a podcast, with the AI creating the transcript for it, you can actually highlight sections of the podcast or snipe them, essentially is what they call it, and save that section of the podcast in a text format. So like if you're listening, like I've been in this situation, I'm sure Will, you have been too, where you're like listening to a podcast, a less fun one like the Wolverine podcast we listened to, or the one I'm listening to about basically like how theories on Amelia Earhart, but like real podcasts, they're real podcasts, but like educational podcasts, or like work type podcasts that you're listening to. I don't know, hypothetically,
anybody on the Educational Podcast Network.
Yeah, somebody on the Educational Podcast Network. Hypothetically, a podcast named the High Tech Podcast, and you hear something super useful from one of the two hosts, usually Will.
This is really unlikely.
This would be very unlikely. But you want to keep it and you want to remember it. Like I've had those moments where I'm like, I'm listening to a podcast about something in history, or I have educational podcasts I listen to that I'm like, oh, that would be cool to remember to do that in a course, or check out that app or something along those lines. Essentially the scenario you're in right now listening to our podcast. You want to remember that
this very moment.
Snipd can help you do that. So you can actually use the app to say, I'm going to save a section of this podcast, and then it connects like Readwise. The reason I brought this up with Readwise is it connects like Readwise to your note apps. So it'll connect into Evernote. It connects into Notion. It actually connects to Readwise if you want to send it over into Readwise itself. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because for me, this is less of like an education-y tool that you can like use with your students, and more of a tool that can help you save information. You can use with your students to help save information, and bring all your stuff into one place. One of my struggles is always trying to save that type of information out of things. Like I hear stuff in podcasts I hear stuff in books that I like, and I want it all in a singular place. And Snipd is one of those tools that in a platform of tools that I've been using now to do that, so that I can actually save that information in there. Aside from the fact that it just creates AI transcripts and things for podcasts, which is super helpful if you want to actually like read through the podcast, and there are podcasts like us that doesn't provide you a transcript.
Could you imagine though? Now, like we're 83 episodes in, and we have to go back and actually bring all this forward.
Do all the transcribing.
So who are we paying to do that?
Yeah, well, we're paying Snipd apparently. Snipd.
Right.
Anyway, so it's pretty cool. I will be honest, I've not been really using this app much yet. It's been on my list to start developing out and using more in my personal life. But the coworker that I have and friend who gave me Readwise has been using Snipd now for several months. And he says it has been working great. And he was showing me some of the stuff that it does. So it was enough that we were like, I want to recommend this. This is one of those kind of, we're recommending as the High Tech Podcast to check out along with us, because we're not really using it much ourselves yet.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool. As far as I can tell, I don't think you actually have to pay for it. So I've been trying to find that information all day prepping for the episode, and I haven't been able to find it. It's a mobile app, and I was able to just create an account here real quick without doing any payment stuff. And looks like I'm able to connect into things without doing anything. So I recommend checking it out and seeing how it works for you. So
yeah. There's actually something on their Notion FAQ page.
Ooh.
Josh.
See, I was
Notion
on their FAQ page.
It says, how do you make money? Currently, we are not yet making any money and are instead of 100% focused on first building a great product that people love.
Oh, that must be nice.
Then we hope to operate like apps like Castro or Pocket Casts, where there'll be a premium version, free version, ads, no ads, stuff like that. So yeah. And then this is mildly upsetting. There's something in this that's saying, this is about how there might be some restrictions about how many snips you can make. So they're putting it as snips, which means the name would be Snipd, which I don't
snipped.
like.
Snipped.
I don't like that because snipped sounds like cut something, like snipped it.
I guess.
Like I don't like snipping
that makes
things.
Sense. So sorry, after all of this, the name is Snipd.
I liked Sniped better. Sniped was better.
Well, this is what happens when you talk about stuff for the first time. So yeah. I don't know. Check out the app. I downloaded it now. I have plans to use it. I think it's a cool app. I think it's worth checking out. And pairs together well with Readwise. I think as an educator or somebody working in tech area, why these apps together are helpful. You can combine these with a notes app to actually bring all of your information into one singular place, making it easy to find. And I can tell you from teaching my course and using that alongside as a teacher, that has been super helpful. Being able to pull stuff from the books and course and different audio things related to the topics that I'm teaching makes it much easier for me later on to leverage that information that I build over time to create good content and remember things, because I can't remember everything. So
yeah, Josh's practices around knowledge management, even just for a personal basis, make me feel like an idiot. Like he uses so many tools to help him keep his life straight. I'm like, well, duh, that's brilliant. Like these things. Anyways.
Yeah.
So check out Snipd or get sniped and let us know. Like. Tweet us, add us, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Check it out.
Anything else on that one? I think we're good.
I think we're good. Yeah, I think that's a pretty simple app. Go check it out. You can download it off the store, and we'll put a download link for both Apple and Android in the podcast page on our website at hightechpod.com. hightechpod.us in case you forgot what it was.
There you go. Yeah, get it while it's free, right? Like if I might just make an account to see if
right now while it's free. Yeah.
Make sure I've got one long term.
If it's anything like Notion, you can get it while it's free, and then maybe they'll never notice that you never paid when they start moving to a paid thing.
Yes.
Because I still don't think we're not paying for Notion. I
love that.
Anyway. Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of this episode, which is the end of season 2. This is
not the end of the High Tech Podcast. Don't worry.
Well, no.
Don't fret.
We are season 3 is already being recorded in our minds.
Yes.
We'll start recording it next week.
It needs to actually be recorded out loud for it to progress to that next level. But it is in our heads. Don't you worry. And I'll find a tool eventually that will pull stuff out of my head into my personal knowledge database.
Amazing.
I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm sure we'll get there.
Amazing. We're pretty excited, folks. We're wrapping down season 2 here. It's been a great year. We're going to take a few weeks off around the winter holidays, holidays. I don't know what's the platonic way to say that anymore. Around Christmas for us.
Around Christmas. Yeah. When you're listening to this episode, it's early December. So we're taking a couple weeks break.
Have some downtime. We go all over the place for those months, for those weeks, not months. But we're back season 3 on January 10th.
Nailed it. Great work. I love the level. I love that I anticipated you were probably going to try to tell them because I opened up the information page about the beginning of season 2.
He had it ready. And we're opening up more seasons. We seriously have 3 seasons planned already for next year. We're going to try and do different things with them and keep different sets of series to each season. Like there's folks, we are bringing steam to this engine. We're pretty darn excited for
I
the
thought you were
next
talking
season.
about the gaming tool. I was like, wait, we're going to talk about Steam now?
That too.
Yeah, Steam for education. That's the thing, right? I'm excited about season 3. We've got some cool plans. Will's not joking. We literally already have like three seasons worth of ideas together. But excited for season 3, where don't want to give away too much, but we're looking to see some more social media stuff coming up, some more series, as we always do. And maybe a surprise change to our medium of podcast. You will see. That's all I'm giving you for now because we're test running it right now on this podcast.
And if tonight's test sucks, well then
we're going to. This could be a sound trap situation where you live hear us do it and then we stop using it.
Hey, still stand for Soundtrap for what it
could
do.
I like that was not negative. I love Soundtrap for different things, but it did not work for the High Tech Podcast to do what we wanted to do.
So until season 4, happy holidays to anybody listening at this time of the year, but also to those in the future. Hang tight. We'll be back with season 3 very soon. We're very excited for those new materials, new ideas, new people to join us. Until then, as always, find us on Twitter. We are at High Tech Podcast. Make sure to email us, inbox at hightechpod.us, and find our website, iTech Podcast.
Website? Website?
Listen,
if you're gonna go .us, I'm gonna call you out when you say website. That's all I'm saying.
Here I am thinking I'm gonna slide right out of the episode. And brick wall. Man. Okay, well, our website is hightechpod.us or .us.
Nope,
and we hope that you'll continue to follow the podcast as we figure this stuff out. Thank you again for joining us for another week, another season of the High Tech Podcast as we continue to learn what it looks like to harness technology in the classroom, whether it's online or in person. Until next season, see ya.
See ya.